this will be better than last time because I read this recently. Studied it a little bit. Here, I'll slow them fans down. The heat, I think.
You're going to make me happy, Sam.
It's on 72. You want it warmer than 72?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll turn the fans like half throttle. How about that? I'll slow them fans down and we'll get less circulation and that'll be a little less feel of cool. Okay. I guess we'll get started. Let's open with a prayer. Dear Lord our God, we praise you for bringing us together, for the day you've given us, for the lives you give us. There's so much to praise you for. We thank you for all the gifts you give us, the children, the wives, the lives, the jobs. You are so great. Watch over us today as we talk about Cornelius, the Gentile. In Jesus we pray. Amen. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Good morning. And we are on Cornelius. And he starts out, and he wants us to read Acts 10:28. And where were we last week? In 9. The conversion of Saul. He said to them, "You are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with or visit a Gentile. But God has shown me that I should not call anyone impure or unclean." He starts out with this. I'll go with his main topic is, how do we treat each other? Do we treat each other equally, or do we look down on people? That's a big part of it. He starts out talking about in Hawaii there was a leper colony. I call it a leper colony. He called it almost a leopard jail, and it sounded like a leopard jail. They had him on a little peninsula, and there was a wall there, so he couldn't get back.
I know this is probably nothing that matters, but I like definitions, and when they said seawall, that is inaccurate. A seawall is concrete, the concrete barrier.
That's what I figure. It's a seawall they put up. No?
It's sea cliffs. It's the mountains.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
Giant. No, it is.
Oh, it is? You looked it up? Okay. Natural barrier.
It's not something that they put up. Like, they stuck them on this peninsula, and there was no way
Yeah, out. Yeah.
Cornelius, page 25.
Yeah, and it's a shame because they should have treated them a whole lot better than that. They should have brought them help and food, not thrown it off the ship.
Other thing, I had a question and I couldn't find it. I mean, we're talking about basically a preacher going to them, so I'm assuming that most of these people were in some sort of Christian.
I don't know. He really doesn't go into that. He talks about that, and gosh, they should have been much. I can understand having somewhere they would be away from other people and in contact with other people because they didn't know how to cure the disease back then or even to treat it. And I understand that part, but they can be compassionate in the matter and make sure they get good food and get taken care of. That's part of his theme here is how we treat each other. Huh?
That's what happened in COVID. It's like, oh, get away from me. You don't.
Oh yeah, we went through COVID, didn't we?
We do this. That's what humans tend to do. It's like,
Yeah, push them away.
about self-preservation, and I don't want to have any chance of. They did that to us at work. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. We had to be separated. We couldn't be close by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's just.
So we've had an experience that's similar to this. Yes. Any other thoughts on this? I thought they should have treated them a lot better than that. They should have set up some kind of system to get them food and shelter and, try to give them as best medical attention as they could in the time and whatnot, but they didn't. So they just put them there. And you look at Jesus, what did he do? He healed leopards. He touched leopards. He was a changing game to most of them at the time. Then he talked about the elementary school and the boys and the girls, and the boys against the girls. Still talking separation. And Jesus wasn't that way. He drawed people together. He didn't take one person. He has stories in here, and we'll talk about those, where he went to other people. And what did you think of the education one when they had the elementary school thing? That was something he experienced. I kind of get that by the way he talked. He experienced that. But don't we, some people look at people down. I know when I was in school, I was a rough reader. I didn't read well, and I did not like to read in front of people. And they think you're stupid at that point in time. No, I wasn't stupid. I could pass tests. I could do whatever else anybody else did. I just couldn't read in front of them. I had a friend that was right behind me in English class, and we did a test, and he looked over my shoulder and says, "You got a B minus." And he said it really loud. I go, "Wow." And he says, "See, I only got a B plus." Well, he's a dentist now. And I think he knew I was a lot smarter than what the rest of them thought me. When I was in grade school, I had an eye taken out. It was taken out in Iowa City and strengthened the muscles behind it. But I missed 13 weeks of school. I was keeping up with my schoolwork and everything, but they said, 11, he should stay back. It isn't going to hurt him. He's the youngest one in the class. My mother said after that, I lost all my friends. I just kind of give up on it. I know that's why I don't spell well, because I didn't do much about it. Learned my basic words. That hurt me a lot. And just because someone has, say someone is autism or something like that, doesn't mean they're stupid. Doesn't mean they're below us. We need to look at everybody as an equal in God's eyes. He should be an equal in my eyes. Yeah, and that's his theme through this.
I was definitely more than a little prejudiced. I would be much more likely to talk to somebody filling up at the gas station with a cross necklace or, than covered in face
I know.
tattoos. I should have been.
We all fall victim to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
stand in line and you stand in line and you stand in line and eventually somebody passed away on you. It's a pretty humbling experience, but I think it'd be good for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Goes with the race too. I mean,
Well, you're the only white person besides the only person got brown eyes. I'm a doctor. I have two specialties. I went to school longer than any of the guys that I work with, but I can't get called doctor. Like my patients don't, they call me Kendra, and they'll say, "Did you know Dr. Crossley or Dr. This or Dr. That?" And they'll call the nurses doctors, but they will not call them doctor. And it's,
yeah.
you just kind of take it because it's like, okay, that, whatever. But yeah, it is.
Don't you think that's more because you're a friend?
Right, right. But people I've never seen before or things like that.
But you're so kind. You're so kind and so compassionate that people feel a closer connection to you than they would a regular doctor. I think.
Maybe so. I
I
should start
think
thinking
so.
about it.
I think so because everybody comments on how compassionate and kind you are.
You
You're
know,
like a friend.
doing
Now that you all know that it bothers her.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
you know.
in medical
So do
school,
you want Dr. Kendra or
I
do
don't.
you want us to say
That's
Yeah.
different.
Dr.
I'm
Martin?
not saying that you guys have to call me
I
doctor,
hear you.
but for people I've never seen before,
Or your
when I introduce
people you
myself
work
as
with.
Dr. Martin, they still call me Kendra. It is frustrating. In medical school, women, as women, you have to be like better.
Spot on.
Step it up. You have to claw and climb over people to get experiences instead of the men.
If you were a little more arrogant
And
and
taller, probably.
yeah,
That's the problem. You are just,
I worked her much
you need
better.
some of these.
But yeah, I mean it is. We all
I
have
think she's been there.
experiences.
I refer to you as Dr. Clement.
But yeah,
I
it's
try to
just.
do that when I'm in the office with my neighbors and I call and ask for.
But yeah, we all experience it in some way. So
In some ways, we all experience that because education over dropouts. He brings all these up. New timers over old timers, or well, old timers over the new timers. When somebody starts at my work, I've got a lot of experience. Well, I tend to try to help them and whatnot, but then I will have people start there that have less experience and they feel they have more experience than me, and then I usually have to watch them fail many times, at least 3 times before they'll listen to me. Young man started there and he asked me how to do a job, and I go, he wanted to do it this way. He wanted to press it apart this way. And I go, no, I don't do it that way. You do it this way. You do here and here and here. Well, that's going to take a lot longer. I could do that and just snap your fingers the other way. Well, I think I don't like to do that way. I've had problems with that way before. Oh, well, I'm going to do it my way. Well, he did it his way twice. And then he found out why I didn't do it that way, because he broke the crap out of it. He had to the shop wound up buying an expensive housing to replace. And he came to me and says, well, that must be why you do it the other way. And he started to do it again. It took it twice to get this through his head. And then he'd come ask me, and I go, no, I don't do it that way. I do it this way. It probably breaks or something, doesn't it? Possibly. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. It was back when I started here 25 years ago. I went through those type of things, but I do have experience to tell you how it will work. And he started listening to me after that. So sometimes age is a good thing. I say that reluctantly now, but age is a good thing. You have experience. So, age and that. Anybody experience that with newbies and new people in there? I know how to do it. I know how to do it. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I do have experience at it. But then they may know something new and I not know it. I need to listen to them. I've caught myself times I need to listen to them because they know something new. So we need to treat each other equally on that type thing. But we need to look to our elders for examples. The Bible has elders. Why? They're experienced. They've been around a while. Been through a lot of hardships. Yeah. When I started coming here, I picked up this job of being chairman of the board. That became an interesting experience. I went through a lot of trying times then. I remember the first board meeting I stood in front of. Ooh, that was a lot of nervousness. First time, next week we will have a all-church meeting here, and I'll get up here and stand in front of you, which I have no nerves at anymore. He seems to have showed me I don't need nerves. I just need to do what he wants me to do. Say what he wants me to say. Let the Spirit lead me. I know Ray asked me to do something, and I go, well, do you know what you're going to do? He'll give it to me. It might be in the middle of the night or tomorrow or sometime, but I'll have something prepared. But generally, I have something prepared before I step up here. Okay. Do you realize that he brought up in here Jews couldn't drink milk that had been drawn by a Gentile, or eat their food, or a Jewish physician could not treat a Gentile or a pregnant woman. They couldn't even, somebody was in dire need, they could not treat them. Doesn't exactly sound like God's people, does it? In a way. But they were told to be separate. Really separate people. But sometimes I wonder, there was they added to the law a little, their own rules. That's the only thing that Jesus chimed them about, was the things they added. They read something and interpreted it and made up little rules to go with it, like how far they could travel on a Sabbath. I don't think that's really in there. No, it's not really in there at all. And they couldn't work on Sabbath. His disciples were going through a field and started picking the heads of grain because they were hungry and eating them. That was work. No, it wasn't work. They were eating. Yeah. There's a lot of things about the Jews and the Gentiles. But Jesus did talk to Gentiles. Samaritans. He talked to the Samaritan woman at the well. That's part of this. We're going to talk about that. We may even look up a couple of those scriptures if I run not enough. Then Jesus came and touched lepers, and talk to the Samaritan woman, because she shouldn't have been able to drink the water that she drawed from the well by their laws. Couldn't draw milk, couldn't draw water, couldn't get you anything. Gosh, couldn't use your container, couldn't do anything. So he didn't play by their rules. He ate with tax collectors. They all thought he was drunker because he ate with them. Yeah, he changed the whole thing. And his church changed it a lot more. We'll talk about the Canaanite woman. That's in Matthew 15:21. And she had a daughter that was possessed, that was dying. That's a good one to look up, because we're going to see that the disciples pushed her away. They didn't want anything to do with her. They showed their Jewishness. They showed that they didn't want to be involved with, like the centurion, didn't want to be involved with a Gentile. We'll look that up here pretty quick. And Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, if you think about her, what did he tell her that he didn't tell the rest? And shout out from the cornerstones, from the corner, that he was the Messiah. He was the Messiah. She told him. He stayed with her and stayed with the people that were there a while. So when they, in chapter, I've got it written down.
Wasn't that the one that had the fifth man that wasn't her husband?
Yeah, yeah. She lived with one, and I think, what did she have, 5 others before that, if I remember right? Yeah, the church scattered. Philip in chapter 8, beginning of chapter 8, Philip brings the message to the Samaritans. Do you think it was easy? Because he already told that Samaritan woman that he was the Messiah. I'm sure she told her friends, people he went and stayed with there a little while. I'm sure it was spreading. News spreads by the word, because there wasn't much written news. There's no TV to turn on, no radio to turn on. You listen to what somebody says, hey, this guy Jesus came to our village, and he says he's the Messiah, and we believe him. He's amazing. I'm sure the news scattered in Samaria. Let's see, where am I next? My notes got a little scattered here. But Samaritan woman is an interesting point. I know one thing like Phil, Ray's dad, said that's the one place over there he'd like to go. Because Jacob's well still exists. And he says, I could stand in the same ground that Jesus stood in, for sure. Because most of the other stuff that he was at, that you can read in here, do not exist in this day. They can say it's this, but they're really not sure. But this well exists. I thought that was interesting that I said something about Phil. It'd be kind of neat to go over and see some of that. He says, yeah, there's one place I'd like to go, where Jacob's well was. Why is that? Well, think about it. It's the only place that you can put Jesus. You can walk on his ground, maybe. You walk around there. Okay, let's look up 15:21. If you've got a Bible with you. We're in Acts. Acts. No, wait a minute. John. No, it's Matthew. I said Matthew 15:21. Let me get myself straight. 15:21. I've got to change books too now. I should have wrote it down there so I could read it. And I can't do such a thing.
I have a real question, and I need help.
Okay, go for it.
How do we reconcile being Jesus to people and sinners, but also in 1 Corinthians 5:11 it says, don't associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or a sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy or an idolater or a slanderer or a drunkard or a swindler. Don't even eat with those people. And then in 1 Corinthians 5 it says, expel the wicked person from among you. So, in 1 Corinthians 5:11. How does it reconcile with what Max is saying
I understand you.
and follow?
And reconcile the bad one amongst you. Yes, that would be That's a church thing, not a personal thing.
What's a church thing?
Reconciling, getting rid of that person amongst you. He's talking about amongst the church.
But then he.
Well, those people are given time after time tries, and then there may be some point that you may not be able to keep them there.
So when it says how can you put, I'm sorry, in the book in the discussion.
Oh yeah, you're on the questions.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back on the questions. Okay, let me get on the questions.
So what are we talking about when he asks about marginalized Christians?
Why? Okay.
30, page 30, the last one.
Yeah, I'm on page 30. Which question are you on? The third one? On the third one.
Who were we talking about with marginalized Christians?
Yeah, marginalized Christians.
I don't know exactly.
Okay, they might mean people that come in and sit and don't study the Bible. They just come to listen and be there.
Or on holidays, maybe?
Huh?
Or just come on holidays like Christmas?
Yes, that would be kind of marginalized, I guess. They'd only come on a holiday. They only come when they bring family. They only come, they're a holiday Christian, I guess you want to call them. I guess that'd be a marginalized Christian, but we need to try to move them on in.
Sure.
Get them closer.
I got some family that only comes once in a great while, but
Yeah, the family
But
doesn't
it
listen to you.
no, they don't.
I mean, even
Marginalized Christians.
neighborhood, you know,
So how do we reconcile?
Everybody else,
How do we reconcile that?
child.
well, but I think the key would have come to them, because they basically
I'm still trying to do it my way.
The best thing you can do is pray for them and keep on.
what they
Yeah.
did, because we went to a church,
He's talking about in the church.
He's talking about believers that,
In the church. In the church.
So it's
Yeah, he brings up marginalized Christians. That might be Christians that you know that aren't all in, but he's wanting you to make time for them. He's trying to get you to persuade them to get all in with God. That's what he's talking about here. How can you make time for marginalized Christians? In other words, someone that is sitting. He comes to church, but he's not been baptized. He don't really kind of believe in baptism, and he's sitting there, and he comes, but he doesn't really participate in anything like Bible study, or he would sit in this and just say nothing. Could you give him time to talk to him and try to get him to understand what it feels like to be with God? So I think that's what he's trying to say. We need to take.
he's talking about people though that we know that they're doing immoral, unchristian things.
Oh yeah, too. Yes, of course.
So we're not judging his salvation, but we are judging what he's doing, saying that he's a Christian, and we need to
Come to him and talk to him.
attention that, you say you're a Christian, but you're not living as a Christian.
Yeah, he's talking about.
And the Bible says that, you take the elders and this person won't listen, that you
He's talking about you.
in the church.
He's talking about you here, not the elders. You.
Right.
You have something to do with marginalized Christians. I don't think they're the point that they would need kicked out of the church in this point. I think he's talking about marginalized Christians that are here, what we used to call pew setters. They come, they're not bad people. They just don't want to get involved. They're cold. They're not hot or cold. They're just a setter. The way it talks, and he wants to spit them cold ones out of his mouth. And if you're warm, you ain't any better. You need to be hot.
I guess my question is lots of examples come with like talking to people, those type of things. That's just not the blessing that I have been given. I'm not a talker. That's not, I'm a listener. I'll listen all day, but how do I do that as me?
I know. I understand that point.
I'm not.
Where God would lead you.
But you do that. You do that in all the stuff that you do, the kids over there at the school. You do that. You didn't have to learn to love people like that.
Well, that's more like being a leader, not necessarily a talker. She can speak and feel empathy with kids, adults, whatever, but
You do.
her ability to not only show what she feels, but show it to the other people, to me, that's a leader.
Well, this is asking how you personally, my reading of it,
Yeah.
would make time for marginalized Christians in your life. Okay, we've been talking about two different things, I think. And for the make time for marginalized Christians, I would think that associate with them. They're not going to hurt you. Just associate with them, be warm, involve them in things, whatever they will be involved in, because some pew sitters are just kind of bashful. And they need to be included
I agree with you both. That's very good.
We'll have many churches closed. That people won't come to church anymore.
It's just hard to get somebody new to come to church that hadn't been to a church before. I know someone that backed out of the church, and they told me that they'll all be talking about me as soon as I walk in the door. And I go, wow. So we can't go? So you can't go? No, because they'll talk about me as I come in the door. And that was the end. Didn't go back to any church, as far as I know. I do meet some of my old friends in my walk of life, going to school, going to events kids have. I met a lady that I knew from a long time ago. I didn't know she went to church anywhere, and we got to talking, and she told me where she was going to church and told me where she was in life with it, and I was very proud of her. I told her I was proud of her. And she was, I think I made her day, but I was proud of her that she had started going back to church. So we need to, it kind of naturally pops out of me when I'm talking to people for some reason. He kind of pokes it out when I need it. I've talked to young kids, as I talked last time, and it just comes out of me. I start talking about going to NYR. I start talking about what we're doing in our church and start asking questions of them. What do you do? And no, I went when I was a kid. Well, you need to find you a church and get back there. It's the best I can work with them, because they came from a long ways to come to where they were, and they don't live anywhere near me. But I meet a lot of people. And we need to spread the word, our experiences. Tell about us. Tell what God's did for us. Our story. Because we all have stories. Did I think I'd be standing up here now? No, absolutely not. God had to put me here. I wasn't somebody who'd want to get in front of anybody after everybody laughed at me in school. No. And why would I want to know how to lead? Well, he shoved me in charge of a part of the Methodist church up there when I was there. And I went through some experiences. I learned about it. You don't hesitate. You give them what you think they need to know. It's God leads us. If we look, He's led us here. Any more talk about the questions in the end? Yeah. Why did Cornelius not look like the part, even though he was a Christian follower? Why wouldn't he look the part? He was a centurion. Nothing even close to them. What gets me, the Jews felt they were the only ones that God was talking to them. Sometimes I get that feeling that they thought God hasn't come to anybody else or talked to anybody else. Well, if you go back in the Old Testament and go to Numbers, and there's a story about a talking donkey in there, and the kings come to this guy and say, hey, we need you to, go against them. Do whatever you do and get against them. Well, he was sacrificing to God. He was praying to God. He must have had a good reputation of finding things out or doing things for them to come to him. In the end, he blessed them. But they were out there. People watching God, praying to God. They did not have a monopoly on it. They act like they did. And they felt like they did. And yeah, they did have a really big connection with him. He was their people for the Messiah to come from. Some say that that's all they did, and now they're done. No, they'll be involved in the end, as all of us will. Let's see. We suffer judgments. Do people today? Yeah, okay. Today, do you feel that there's a hierarchy in the church and you're the low totem pole? Or in some churches, there is the upper echelon, like the Methodist Church has their leaders, the Catholic Church has their Pope. Do you feel that some people think they're better than you over God, about God? They have more God, or they're higher in God's ranking than you are? You ever had that feeling? No? No? I know. And then we're supposed to say that in this church, and we do believe it.
I've been in circumstances where they question things and it's hard to answer. And when they explain where they're from, well, you can kind of see that way, but you know it's not the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't know what to really say.
Yeah. Well, I've only been to one Catholic church. I went to a service on a Sunday to a Catholic church up at Holly Ann. The college, a lot of colleges came from churches. They started them to teach their own people, and they grew. It was Catholic college, and we went up there and we went to the service there. Really, that area is like one Catholic church, the next Catholic church, the next Catholic church, the next Catholic church. We looked it up. There was maybe 2 we could find that weren't Catholic.
Well, my great-grandma was buried over there in the Catholic cemetery, and my great-grandpa was buried over Endicott. Because,
They couldn't be buried in the same.
no, not that.
Yeah, and I don't understand that.
She was Catholic and he wasn't.
Well, yeah, one of their laws they come up with. Yeah, and it happens. So we're getting down on time here. I guess the only thing I want to end with is you have to think about this story. Now, this is just looking at an overall of the story involvement in the book. Last week we were on 7, Saul's conversion. Then you want to back up to Acts 7, and that would be Stephen. He preached, he gave a message in front of the synagogue, and they took him out and they stoned him. That started the scattering of the church in 8. Then it started moving out. Philip brings the message to the Samaritans in 8. And next in 8, Philip brings the message to the Ethiopian. Slowly moving out. Then Paul's conversion. And then we're Peter and Cornelius. That brings us to the Gentiles. Now, 11, we didn't talk about 11. Chapter 11, Peter goes back. And they already know about it by the time he gets there, that he's been in that house and everything. Well, he witnesses to all that had happened. But one thing to notice, he brought the 6 witnesses with him. The 6 people that went with him to the house, he brought them with him so they could witness too. What's important about that? When they come back and get instructions for what the Gentiles should do, they only said what strangled meats and don't partake of blood or strangled animals, or what was it? No, it's sacrifice meats. Stay away from them. Anyway, they didn't say, hey, you guys can't be. Yes, you can, because look what happened in Peter. God said he wanted, that's God doing that. And remember, Jews do understand you can't fight God. They understand if it's of God, you can't fight it. You got to go back to Acts 5. Go back to Acts 5, 38 and 39. You'll find that in that area, it's a Sanhedrin. They're talking about what to do. They just had Peter and John in there, I think it is. And they're talking about they're going to kill him. Let's have him put to death. Then this will be over with. And one of the people in the Sanhedrin that everybody respected got up and said, hey, they need to be put out right now so I can talk. So they put him out, basically is what he said. Put him out of there, and he says, now, there's already been 2 men show up with men and all sorts of things, and then he was killed, and it was all gone. Next one happened the same way. He thought he was somebody, and he was shot on. And all his men left as soon as he was killed. If we leave this alone, Jesus is dead. It'll scatter. But if it's from God, killing these men won't matter. We won't be able to stop it. Because look back at them when they were in the desert. They did something wrong. What happened? There was one time he opened the ground and it swallowed them right in front of them. They knew they couldn't fight God. If it was of God, they had to obey and go on. That man understood that. So that's kind of in Peter's DNA. You think, well, how could he have did that so quickly? Well, he thought it was from God. He knew it was from God, and he did it. Trying to point out that God kind of had a plan here. He did not want them to stay in Jerusalem. He moved them out. He showed them who they could preach to. Gentiles. You can preach to Gentiles. That's where we came from. It moved out. Well, it's time. Thank you, everybody. I'm a little better prepared than I was last time. Sorry about last time. Let's close in a short prayer. Dear Lord, our God, we thank you for the message of this book. And we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. Send us on today so we might move the message on. In Jesus I pray. Amen.